Nobody tells you that after your first child is born, the most dangerous thing isn't the sleepless nights. It's waking up one day and realizing the person lying next to you feels like a stranger. 3 months after our baby was born, my wife and I barely looked at each other. We weren't cheating. We weren't abusive. We weren't even fighting every day. But something far more dangerous had happened. We had quietly stopped being us. I honestly believed she had fallen out of love with me. She probably believed I'd stopped caring about her. Years later, I discovered we were both wrong. What almost destroyed our marriage wasn't love. It was the way chronic stress, exhaustion, identity changes, and poor communication slowly rewired how we saw each other. And once I understood what our exhausted brains were doing to us, everything changed. Before my wife and I had our first child, we thought we had life figured out. We stayed up talking until 2 in the morning. We planned random weekend trips. We laughed over the smallest things. We promised we'd never become one of those couples who only talked about responsibilities. We believed our relationship was different, strong enough to survive anything. Then our baby arrived. Everyone celebrated. Family filled our phones with congratulations. Friends called us lucky. People kept saying, "This is the happiest time of your life." And in many ways, they were right. Holding my child for the first time was one of the most emotional moments I'd ever experienced. But no one prepared us for what came after the celebration. Within a few months, our home felt different. Not because we loved our baby any less, but because we barely had anything left to give each other. Conversations became shorter. Smiles became rarer. Date nights disappeared. Sometimes we'd spend an entire evening together without having a real conversation. I started asking myself questions that scared me. Did she still love me? Was I failing as a husband? Were we slowly becoming roommates instead of partners? For months, I thought our relationship was falling apart. Then one evening, after another argument over something neither of us could remember the next day, I started searching for answers. I began reading about stress, relationships, emotional exhaustion, and the psychology of becoming parents. The more I learned, the more I realized something surprising. Maybe we weren't broken. Maybe we were experiencing something millions of couples go through, but rarely talk about. One idea stood out immediately. Psychologists often explain that stress consumes our emotional resources. Think of your emotional energy like a phone battery. Before becoming parents, our batteries usually started the day almost full. We had enough energy to listen carefully, to flirt, to notice each other's moods, to apologize, to be patient. After our baby arrived, it felt like both our batteries started every morning at 20%. Every feeding, every dirty diaper, every doctor's appointment, every interrupted night, every financial worry, every unexpected responsibility drained that battery even further. By evening, neither of us had much patience left. The problem wasn't that love disappeared. The problem was that exhaustion made it harder to express love. Looking back, I realized neither of us intentionally stopped trying. We were simply trying to survive. Then something happened that I didn't understand until much later. I wasn't just becoming a father. I was losing the version of myself I'd known for years. Before becoming a dad, I could go to the gym whenever I wanted, meet friends, watch football without interruption, sleep in on weekends. My schedule belonged to me. Almost overnight, it didn't anymore. Everything revolved around someone else's needs. At first, I thought I was just missing my old routine. Later, I realized I was grieving an old identity. My wife was experiencing something even bigger. The independent woman who loved spontaneous adventures suddenly spent nearly every hour feeding, comforting, carrying, and worrying about our baby. She loved being a mother, But that didn't mean she never missed the woman she used to be. Psychologists describe this as an identity transition. Becoming a parent doesn't simply add a new role. It reshapes your entire sense of who you are. That transition can feel exciting. It can also feel confusing, lonely, overwhelming. When people don't understand those emotions, they often assume something is wrong with the relationship. Sometimes nothing is wrong with the relationship. Everything is simply changing at once. Then came the sleep deprivation. Before becoming a parent, I'd heard people joke about never sleeping again. I laughed. Now I understand why they weren't really joking. Research has consistently shown that poor sleep affects emotional regulation, attention, decision-making, and patience. You don't become a different person, but you do become a more reactive version of yourself. One night around 3 in the morning, I accidentally dropped a plastic bottle cap. Normally, it would have been funny. Instead, it became a full argument. The next day, neither of us could explain why we'd reacted so strongly. That's what chronic exhaustion does. Small inconveniences begin to feel enormous. Neutral comments sound like criticism. Simple misunderstandings become personal attacks. You stop responding thoughtfully. You simply react. Then I noticed another unhealthy pattern. Whenever conflict happened, I shut down. I'd stare at the television, scroll through my phone, answer every question with one word. I thought I was preventing another argument. Later, I discovered psychologists call this stonewalling. It often feels like self-protection to the person doing it. But to the partner on the receiving end, it feels like emotional abandonment. My wife had her own pattern. She'd tell me how exhausted she'd been all day, how she hadn't even had time to shower, how I'd gotten to leave the house while she'd been overwhelmed with childcare. Back then, I only heard blame. Now I hear something completely different. I need you to see how overwhelmed I am. Neither of us was communicating our real emotions. We were communicating our frustration. Then came the hardest truth I've ever admitted. For years, I had been my wife's favorite person. We shared everything. We planned everything together. Then our baby naturally became her biggest priority. Intellectually, I understood why. Emotionally, it hurt more than I expected. I missed her attention. I missed our conversations. I missed feeling like we were the center of each other's worlds. I never resented my child, but I quietly mourned the relationship we'd temporarily lost. Because I felt ashamed of those emotions, I never spoke about them. Instead, I stayed late at work, spent more time on my phone, watched sports, played games, anything that distracted me from admitting how lonely I felt. Only later did I learn that many parents experience emotions they're afraid to confess because they worry they'll be judged. Keeping those feelings hidden only creates more distance. Everything changed one quiet evening after our baby had finally fallen asleep. Instead of arguing again, I held my wife's hands, and for the first time in months, I told her the truth. I told her I missed us. I told her I felt invisible. I admitted I was scared we'd never find our way back. She started crying before I even finished speaking. Then she admitted something I'd never expected. She said she barely recognized herself anymore. She missed sleeping. She missed laughing. She missed feeling attractive. She missed being more than someone's mother. That conversation didn't magically fix our marriage, but it completely changed the direction of it. We stopped treating each other like the enemy. We started treating stress as the enemy. We became more patient, more honest, more forgiving. We started asking each other, "What do you need today?" Instead of, "Why aren't you doing more?" Looking back now, I don't think becoming parents almost destroyed our relationship. I think it revealed every weakness we'd never been forced to face before. Parenthood doesn't automatically break couples, but it magnifies poor communication. It magnifies exhaustion. It magnifies loneliness. It magnifies every unspoken fear. The good news is that awareness changes everything. Once we understood what was happening inside our minds, we stopped assuming the worst about each other. Compassion slowly replaced resentment. Conversations replaced silence. Teamwork replaced blame. Our relationship didn't go back to the way it was before the baby. It became something different, something deeper. Less perfect, but far more resilient. If you're listening to this while wondering whether your relationship is falling apart after having children, please remember this. Struggling doesn't automatically mean you've fallen out of love. Sometimes it simply means you're navigating one of the biggest emotional and psychological transitions of your life. Be patient with your partner. Be honest about your fears. Ask for help when you need it. And remember, it's you and your partner against the problem, not you against each other. If this story resonated with you, share it with someone who might need to hear it. Leave a comment and tell me what changed most in your relationship after becoming parents. And if you enjoy thoughtful stories about psychology, relationships, and human behavior, don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for listening. I'll see you in the next one.